Good afternoon, boys and girls, and our last kind of activity for today is health and well-being. Now what we're going to be doing for that is we've got a new kind of focus and it's called my relationships. Alright, so I'm going to go on to the next slide that will have our learning intention and our success criteria on it, okay? So to show an understanding of how to play well in a team. This is how we're going to start our relationship topic for health and well-being. I can show an understanding of listening to others. I can decide what is fair and unfair in games, and I can recognise that how I behave will affect other people. Now this is something that is really important to learn, okay? Recognising that there are things that are fair and that are unfair, but also about how your behaviour affects other people, so that's pretty important. So let's get started. This is week 1, it's called Well Played. I want you, in a minute, to write down any games or sports that you like playing. And you can pause this video if you need to as well, okay? Now you should already have with you just now a piece of paper or a jotter, a pencil and a rubber. Okay, so can you, in a minute, write down any games or sports that you like playing and pause it if you need to write down your sports. After you've done that, I want you to think about which of those games or sports are played in a team. So next to your sports or games that you've written down, I want you to write whether it's a group game or a solo game. Solo means by yourself, okay? So write down if it's a group game or a solo game. So again, if you need to pause the video to do these little bits, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so teamwork. What does it mean to be a member of a team? What does it mean to be a member of a team? I want you to have a think about that. Now, what I think it means to be a member of a team is that you need to cooperate and work with people. So you need to do things that's the best for your team and not just for you. And that's why the next question says, and why is cooperation with others when working towards a goal, why is that important? So have a little think for a minute, even pause the video to have a wee think. Why is it important to cooperate with others? So boys and girls, now you've had a think, it's important when working with other people towards a goal that you cooperate with them. So cooperation, that means that you talk to them, you take it in turns to speak, you all listen to each other, you all come to a shared agreement, okay? So for example, when you're playing football, one player doesn't do all the work. People have different roles in a football team. So you've got your striker, you've got your centre back, you've got your goalie, you've got your defenders, you've got your captain, okay? So think about football and think about all the positions that you can play, and they all need to work together in order for the team to be successful, okay? So that's why it's important for you to work together and to talk about it. You need to be able to talk to each other to figure out what you're going to do. Okay, so there is no I in team. I want you to write down what you think that means. There is no I in team. So even if you have to pause it, write down what you think there is no I in team means. Now I'm not going to share the answer with you. So you're going to have a write down and a think about what you think it means. And then I want you to write if you agree or disagree with that saying. There is no I in team. Do you agree or do you disagree? So I want you to write whether you agree or disagree, and I want you to write why you agree or why you don't agree. Okay, so you're going to need to pause this video in different parts today, boys and girls, because there's going to be bits of writing. So as soon as you've written down what you think there is no I in team, what that means, you need to write whether you agree or disagree and why or why you don't. Okay, that's your task for just now. Even if you have to pause it, that is fine. But I'm going to keep going, so now would be the best time to pause it if you wanted to write that. Okay, so the next part is being a good sport. So why is it important to try your best playing fairly and being a good loser or winner. Why is that important? So have a think about why it's important to try your best playing fairly and be a good loser or winner. Okay, think about how winners and losers feel. Okay, so why is it important to be a good loser? So if you lose a game, how should you behave? If you win a game, how should you behave? So I want you to write that down, how they should behave, and pause the video if you need to. Okay, so write down how they should behave. How should a good loser behave, and how should a good winner behave? Now this is something we have talked about a lot in PE, especially when playing rounders, about being a good loser or a good winner. So I want you to properly think about this and write it down, and I will talk about this next week as well and go over it. So now, boys and girls, I'm going to give you 8 scenarios. I want you to pick one from each PowerPoint slide. So I've got 2 PowerPoint slides of examples of 8 different things that might happen. I want you to think about what might happen in the group situation. So what would happen in the group? Write down the sentence you're using and answer the questions below. So what you have to do is you have to write down what the situation is, how it would make you feel, and how would you react. Now again, if you need to pause it after the next slide once you've chosen one, that's fine. All I'm doing in the next slide is going over the examples, reading them out. So you'll need to pause it to do the first slide, which is next, and then when we get on to the slide after that, you'll need to pause it again to write your answers. So I'm just going to read the scenarios and you're going to choose one from each slide. So here we go. So choose one of these examples. So example number 1, your best friend is in the same team as you, but he is spoiling the game by messing around. Okay, that's the first example. Example number 2, the referee sends you off, but you don't think you have done anything wrong. Number 3, you spot someone on your team cheating. And number 4, your team has lost 6-1. So please choose one of these examples, and remember you are answering the questions, how would it make you feel and how would you react. So pause it, choose your example, write it down and answer those 2 questions. Okay, and now you have to choose one of these examples, so only choose one of these. So example number 5, you are picking teams and the only person left is not a very good player. Example number 6, your team has won 6-1. Example number 7, you spot someone on the other team cheating. In example number 8, our last example, you are the last person to be picked for a team. So remember, you're choosing one of these, writing it down and answering how would you feel, how would it make you feel, and how would you react to that situation. So you'll need to pause the video again to get your answers down. Sports. Now this is something that's a little bit interesting to see what people's opinions are. Sports. Are some sports only for boys or only for girls? Are there any games or sports just for girls or just for boys? I want you to write your answer down and then explain why that is your answer. Okay? So I want you to write down if there are games that are just for girls or games that are just for boys. Again, write your answer down and why that is your answer. So I'll give you a minute, you can pause the video. Okay, now you've done that. It is important for things to be fair, boys and girls, and for everyone to be included. Okay, it's always important for us to be fair and inclusive in everything that we do. This is why we try different things in PE. Okay, this is why we don't just do football, or we don't just do gymnastics, or we don't just do yoga, or we don't just do rugby or basketball. We all have our own beliefs, and that is okay. That's okay as long as we don't try to force other people to follow our beliefs or purposely say something to hurt someone. Okay, Now, that's why we have mixed teams. That's why I always ask you to mix your team, and why when we get to the last group that I choose people, because I like to decide for half the class who goes in what team, and you get to choose the other half. Okay, just so we've got a mixture of boys and girls, because some of the boys want to just choose boys and some of the girls just want to choose girls. So instead we like to have a mixture so we can all play together. And the last one that we're going to do today is I'm going to read a poem to you, and it's called Picking Teams by Alan Alberg. Okay, now I'm going to read you, and afterwards I want you to think about it. You don't need to write anything down, but I want you to discuss this poem with someone in your family. It might be your parents, it might be a sibling. If any of you would like this poem written down, I'm going to share it onto Teams. I really like this poem because it explains a lot, and it explains how some people would actually feel. Okay, so please listen really carefully and have a chat with someone at home about it afterwards. Picking Teams by Alan Alberg. When we pick teams in the playground, whatever the game might be, there's always somebody left till last, and usually it's me. I stand there looking hopeful and tapping myself on the chest, but the captains pick the others first, starting, of course, with the best. Maybe if teams were sometimes picked, starting with the worst, once in his life a boy or girl like me would end up being first. Okay, so I want you to have a chat with someone at home about that. But your answers that you've written down, what I want you to do with them is to share them by email to me, take a picture of them, share them on email with me, or you can put them on Teams in your folder just like you did for your dictation. So you get to choose how you want to submit it to me, boys and girls. But let's just end today, and I'm going to read this poem and we're going to end again. I'm going to read it once more, so listen carefully. When we pick teams in the playground, whatever the game might be, there's always somebody left till last, and usually that's me. I stand there looking hopeful and tapping myself on the chest, but the captains pick the others first, starting, of course, with the best. Maybe if teams were sometimes picked, starting with the worst, once in his or her life a boy or girl like me could end up being first. Have a lovely weekend, Primary 4.